Hello again, Salem. This is William Legault from Salem Digest. We are here again at the Salem Access Television Studios on Derby Street, bringing you another candidate for elective office for next month's, tomorrow is next month, as a matter of fact, preliminary election on the 14th of September. And today we have Veronica Miranda Faustino, who is running for the open seat in Ward 7. Veronica, welcome. Thank you for coming down today.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming a second time because of our minor glitch from your first taping. This is your second run, this is your first run for elective office, period, not just here in Salem. What's the motivation, Veronica? Why do you want to put your name on the ballot? That's a big move.
It is a big move. I definitely wanted to see more Black representation on the City Council. And I live at Rainbow Terrace in Salem. So I really wanted to kind of empower the other people who are there living in poverty and other marginalized populations that are living in Salem.
And that's quite a bit of a population. We have you could call it a minority population. I don't think that's the proper term anymore. Different demographics.
Yeah.
We do have quite a few people that are on the bubble in Salem, of all races, of course. Yeah. But I don't think I'm trying to think back on City Council. We've had minority representation on the City Council. And we do today, and we do on the school committee, but I can't think of a Black city councilor going back. I'm racking my brain and I can't think of one. So that's an interesting concept, an interesting reason. You're looking maybe to set an example for some of the youngsters out there also.
Definitely.
So Ward 7, interesting ward. A lot of single-family homes. There's a good amount of multiple-family homes also, especially along the entrance corridors like Jefferson, Lauren Avenue. There's some multiple-family homes.
Yeah.
And outside of SSU projects, though, in Vinnon Square, it really hasn't been affected by development in Salem as much as other wards. Do you have any thoughts on what the development should look like in Ward 7 moving forward, specifically the SSU South Campus and that beautiful St. Cridian's property up on the hill?
Sure. I would love to see that property specifically preserved. I love history, and I think a lot of Salem residents feel similarly and really appreciate the history that's there. So I think for that property, it's really important that we find a way to utilize that. But aside from the older school there, it seems like residents, constituents, specifically in Ward 7, really want to see affordable senior housing. And I'm a big advocate for affordable housing for all. So I would love to see something like that. If not, I would also love to see more opportunities for preschool, because I definitely think that Salem needs more spots for preschool.
Now that's an old concept in reality here in Salem that was brought up back when we hadn't had a new senior center built. Before we built the Jean Levesque Life Center, there was talk about combining a Boys and Girls Club location with the new senior center or life center. A lot of people saw that as a good concept, having the youngsters with the older folks. That's something that's a vision that you're looking at?
Yeah, I love that concept. I think that would be great for the seniors and for the kids. And I think that would really kind of create this community engagement in that area that I feel is really needed in Ward 7. There's not really a lot of places for people to come together, and there's not as much of an aspect of a community feel, in my opinion, and from some constituents that I've had the chance to speak to. So I definitely think that we need more in terms of community engagement in a space where youth can go.
So you're looking for more of a neighborhood feel,
yes,
perhaps, which would be an interesting concept there.
Yeah.
Now, senior housing, of course, it's a hot button issue. It's a buzzword, actually. Affordable housing, senior housing, housing for the disabled. all hot button issues here in Salem, really across the state and across the country. When you're talking that category, you're talking affordable housing. Do you think affordable housing is actually affordable these days for those that really need it?
I think that there needs to be kind of like an update on what's affordable according to like what people are making. I know, in my opinion, it's affordable housing in terms of like the 60% AMI is not affordable, and we really need to look towards like 80% AMI, and I think that that's progressive for Salem, but I think that it's definitely needed. 67% of renters in Salem are cost burdened, and upwards of like 30-something% of homeowners. And that's really troubling to see. And we have a major issue, and that is like a national issue, but I definitely think there's things that we can do on the city's end to make like our living and our quality of life a bit better.
Have you got something you can throw out there, do you think, is a way the city can improve the quality of life and maybe decrease the burden on some of these renters and homeowners?
Yes. I think that we need to really up the percentage of affordable, the affordable units that we're asking from developers. I think that we could work with nonprofits and like nearby organizations that are really focused on this population and helping people going forward, and less focused on, you know, the profit piece of development.
Which is really a problem, not only with private developers, but even the public-private developers. You have all these buildings for the North Shore CDC in the Point area, and they have some in other communities. They operate on the same subsidy system and still not really affordable.
Yeah.
How could you get somebody like North Shore CDC to participate and bring the cost down to the renter?
I think it's really a matter of not negotiating with, like not working with 10%. 10% is way too low. We need, in my opinion, and this may be a bit out there, we need upwards of like 50 or higher. And really, I'd love to see 75 to 100% affordable housing in Salem. I think that that's kind of like bold. But we really need to start looking for solutions because people are struggling and having to move out of Salem.
So you'd be looking at shooting the moon, so to speak, and set a very, very high goal with the hope of getting some reasonable middle ground in there.
Yeah.
So affordable housing, senior housing at the St. Cridians and the SSU. Any other spots you see in the area, or do you just... Is it really a regional issue as opposed to just a local or a ward issue?
I think it's definitely a national issue, regional issue. It's not, I mean, this isn't only Salem that's dealing with this issue, but I think that we're in a position that we can really kind of speak to and advocate for more. And I don't think that we should continue to work with 10%. I think we should be pushing the bar way higher.
All right, let's segue a little bit, change directions a little, but stay basically on the same subject. The city's looking at rebuilding some of the senior or affordable housing, subsidized state housing, which, of course, they all come under the purview of the Salem Housing Authority, but it seems like the days of the Salem Housing Authority building by themselves with the state is over. So, according to our state representatives and our state senators, it's the public-private developments which are going to be moving forward. How do you feel about what they've proposed to build down at Leaford Terrace, and as a possibility, of course, for Pioneer Terrace over in Palmer's Cove? Do you see units like that coming up into that Salem state property? There won't be single-level housing. Those days seem to be gone also. How big is too big? What do you see there? 2 stories, 5 stories? What's fair to both the residents and the neighbors and the people that need the housing?
I think it's important that it fits with the character of the city. and that it kind of matches the city. In the Lee Fort Terrace area, I would love to hear from the constituents in that area and see what the consensus is there, and get a feel for what they would like to see. I think that it's not wise to have like 1 or 2 stories. It probably makes sense to go a bit higher. But I would really be looking at like quality development and what's best for the city overall. I'm a big advocate for mixed use development and kind of combining commercial and residential.
Looking to bring a little neighborhood feel into the development, but you don't want to see anything too big.
Definitely not, no.
And the character of the neighborhood up there in the SSU area, it's all single-family homes.
Yeah.
But you're adjacent to a nice recreational area, hiking area,
Yeah.
and things like that. Now, up on the top of the hill is St. Cridian's, and you had mentioned, I think, that you would want to preserve that building.
Yes, definitely.
And you could do a lot with that building, and you would look at that also as subsidized housing of some kind.
For that building specifically?
Yes.
No, I don't think that I would look at that as being subsidized housing. I would like to see that like historically preserved, maybe used for some type of like museum, or maybe used for art. Like art is huge in Salem, and my partner's an artist and is always looking for ways to be in the community. Maybe there could be a way that artists could have a space there or something like that. But I wouldn't utilize that specific space for subsidized housing.
So you see, basically Ward 7 has that one big commercial area, which is Vinnon Square, of course, right on the Swampscott line, and you get the major entrance corridor, Loring Ave, coming in from there and going out. And then you get all the way down toward Salem State. You see a couple of small, a sub shop, a retail store, a couple of other retail outlets, all the way down to Lafayette Street, where you got a mixed-use development with a pizza shop and things like that. What do you see for any further commercial development along that stretch? Do you see, is there an opportunity for that, or you don't think that's something that the ward would want to see?
I would love to see, so technically where Canal and Loring are, it's like split between Ward 5 and Ward 7.
Right.
So Ward 7 really doesn't have a lot in terms of like a coffee shop. If I was looking for a coffee shop just in Ward 7, I would either have to go to the Starbucks at Salem State or Sweet Java at the complete other end. There's really no spot for the people who live at Rainbow Terrace or nearby streets to kind of like come together. And I would love to see a family-owned business, family-owned coffee shop or something like that in that space. As far as like the diner that's there, I would love to, I know that that's not going to stay there, but I would love to see that stay in Ward 7. If that was possible.
That would be interesting. There must be some spots, even if it's up there as part of that proposed SSU development.
Yes.
So SSU really hovers over the ward. You could say it dominates the ward. Mm-hmm. Takes up a lot of space, abuts a lot of properties. Do you feel that SSU has been a good neighbor over the years? It's probably fluctuated, but what are your thoughts on how SSU treats the neighborhood and the ward as a whole?
I think that there's room for growth, and I think that...
Well, you say growth in the relationship with the neighborhood?
Yeah, in terms of communication and kind of getting the word out. Something that I've noticed about Ward 7, just by knocking doors, is that it seems like a lot of constituents aren't really informed about what's going on, and the people in that area seemed really disengaged. It might be the location, or the fact that there's not a lot of opportunity for like that community engagement or community feel. But I definitely think that Salem State can do a better job at serving the community, maybe hosting events or something like that on the campus that isn't like just for students. And I would have to look into that a bit more, because maybe there's more that is out there that they have that I haven't seen. But that's my opinion on it.
Well, one of the things that they do for the community is they provide meeting space in an area where otherwise there really isn't a lot of meeting space, which plays into that lack of a community feel, a neighborhood feel in the ward. Do you think that is that good for the ward, that the meetings always take place there on Salem State? Or does that maybe give Salem State a little bit of a home field advantage when it comes to neighborhood issues that maybe they're creating or contributing to?
I think that's a really good point. And I definitely think we can utilize like Pickman Park a bit more as a city and as a community, and look for other areas to kind of engage the community.
So you don't think that Salem State engages the community enough? Events, something like that, for the community would help?
Correct, yeah.
Would you feel comfortable approaching them with these? I mean, what kind of relationship would you see yourself having as a ward councilor with the leadership, both student and faculty administration at SSU?
Sure. I am a pretty open-minded person, and I would like to think that I served tables for a long time, and I'm able to interact with different populations of people, different ages, and I care about people, and I definitely think that I would be able to advocate for the constituents in Ward 7 with Salem State. I wouldn't have a problem doing that at all. And then also like seeing what is possible from the other side, because there are some things that may just not be possible, and it might be a give and take. And so I would work with them in that way, and then inform the constituents of the communications, and that's how I would go forward with that.
All right, let's kind of move it along a little bit to the other major issue that affects not only Ward 7, but the whole city and all the surrounding communities, and that's traffic. You got Lafayette Street, Jefferson Avenue, Lauren Avenue, and Canal Street. In reality, you have 4 entrance corridors, major entrance corridors, that all basically tie together at that intersection at where Loring, Jefferson, and Canal meet, but Lafayette's just a few blocks away. So basically, they all meet right there. It's like a nexus, and a lot of traffic comes in from a lot of directions there. It's an issue. It's going to continue to be a major issue. Do you have any thoughts on how to best address and mitigate traffic, not only in the ward, but in the Salem? And do you think a more regional approach is needed to look at traffic overall?
I think that if we brought in our ways of transportation and really provide like accessible ways for pedestrians to get around, the bikes that are right by Salem State are great. And I think if we keep doing those things and we keep experimenting with whatever it is that we need to experiment with to try to make Salem safe, that will be best for traffic. We're not going to get rid of traffic, unfortunately, and that's, it's a pain, but it's something that we definitely have to deal with in Ward 7 just because of where it is. But I think if we look at other ways of transportation, we can kind of mitigate that in ways. And so, like in terms of Ward 7, it's not as pedestrian friendly as I would like it to be. And so if we can kind of fix some of those issues, I think that would make a big difference, for sure.
Yeah, Loring Ave is definitely not a pedestrian-friendly route, for sure. Yeah. You have up on the hill there, you've got the Lynch Fair Nautilus Y, which is actually the Salem Y, guys. It's the Salem Y. It's in Salem. Difficult to access that. No sidewalks on Lauren Ave. No sidewalks on Legs Hill Road going up. Steep hill. How would you work to improve that? Would that be a priority of yours, making Loring Avenue and Legs Hill Avenue and the whole area more accessible to people on foot?
Definitely. So my 4-year-old daughter actually goes to LVO, and tomorrow will be her last day because she got a spot at Horace Mann for preschool.
Oh, nice.
But I think that being pedestrian friendly is not only a safety issue, but it's also an equity issue. If it's not accessible, then certain demographics of people aren't going to be able to get there. It's not going to make sense for their schedules or for their places of employment. And so I think that that's also an issue for like race equity. I would love to see the bridge be redone.
The bridge at the bottom of Legs Hill Road.
Correct, yes. And to expand it, it's very tight. It's definitely, I mean, you can barely fit 2 cars. So if there is somebody walking, and I've walked with my daughter home from there, it's scary because people take the corners, Dead Man's Curve, they take it pretty fast, and people are turning onto Legs Hill pretty quickly. So I definitely think that spot can be like reworked.
That bridge goes back to the 1930s, so Work Projects Administration, and of course there's all protected conservation land, wetlands in the immediate area, so it's a difficult project, not an impossible project. So what a lot of people don't know is that Salem Fire is responsible for that Y. Salem Police, emergency response, that Y is in Salem. It's at Salem property. 90% of that land is on Salem property. So when there's emergency calls, Salem Fire is responsible, and they can't bring their trucks over that bridge. They can't bring the ladder trucks for sure. I'm not even sure any of the engines fit. They have to go up and around through Marblehead to respond there. So you're talking about equity. What's the responsibility of the Y to provide equitable transportation to what is a nonprofit built for the good of community? Is there some responsibility for the Y to provide some transportation?
Do you mean like
getting people there, providing a way to get there for people that can't drive there?
Definitely. I think
the Y is designed to serve that demographic.
It is, and I think that the Y has its history with it has its history dating back. But at this point in time, the YMCA's of the North Shore, they are not doing the racial equity work that they really need to be doing. But the transportation piece, I definitely think that more could be done. My daughter going to the preschool, it was not very diverse, and so she was experiencing a lot of like internalized issues there. And I think that if they could at least, like the Salem Y on Essex Street, the population of kids that are going there it's far more diverse, and even the leadership and the teachers that are there, it's far more diverse as opposed to the LVO. So it's very interesting to see. I mean, they're 10 minutes away. It's very interesting to see the two different...
Run by the same organization.
Run by the same organization, two different environments completely. I'm really big into race equity, and I think that it's important that organizations are taking like bold action to combat some of these issues. And I've had some talks with people higher up in leadership, and I think that the first step to kind of solving that issue would definitely be accessibility to the LVO.
It really is not an accessible facility unless you have a car.
Yeah.
So we're still on traffic. So we kind of diverted from there. You mentioned a few minutes ago that you like the fact that the city's trying out different things, transportation-wise and safety-wise, to see what works. So that's kind of a natural segue into the current traffic control, the traffic mitigation efforts that are somewhat controversial. A couple of roundabouts, one permanent, one temporary that's about to become permanent. But then there's the bike lanes, the soft pylons along the bike lanes, and the infamous armadillos. How do you feel about these trial steps that have been taken? What do you see that works and what do you see that doesn't work?
We won't really know if it works until we try it. I think that these measures are being experimented with all across the country, and I think that it's wise for us to experiment with things and try things. Of course, I don't want to see people get hurt, but it's important that we try to find a way to get cars to slow down and to make biking safe, and to make the walkways and the roads and all of that safe for pedestrians as well, or people on skateboards. And so although I can understand how frustrating it is, like by Collins Middle School, where I worked for some time, it gets really tight over there. And I understand that that's frustrating, and in ways that could be like unsafe. I think that it's worth a shot to at least try and see if it works. Does it slow down the vehicles? Like these measures that are being put into effect aren't just being like tossed up. Like people are voting on these things, city council or otherwise. And I think that it's important that we experiment with that, and then we continue on making all of the roads in Salem accessible for bikes, skateboards, pedestrians, and other ways of transportation.
All right, let's just touch just a little more on ward issues. And traffic, of course, and development are still in play. What do you look at as the most important one or two, maybe even three issues facing Ward 7 today? Or what would your priorities be if you got elected to City Council for Ward 7? And how does that tie into your priorities for the city?
Sure. My priority for Ward 7 would be community engagement and really talking to constituents, informing them of the issues and both sides of the issues. Because if we're looking at it, if we're looking at facts, looking at data and truth, and not just kind of spilling whatever fits the narrative, then we can really try to come together and work together. I think that there has been a separation with people in Ward 7 and really a division, and the tribalism there. I don't really like to see that, and I don't think that it's helpful for our community. I don't think it's helpful for Salem. Community engagement is a big piece for me, and getting the data out to people and like objectively, and showing them like this is what we're working with, and then hearing from constituents and really communicating one-on-one or to a group, but really communicating with people on like a human-to-human level.
So you'd be looking to engage the ward on a regular basis.
Definitely.
And I mean, if you look at Ward 7, parts of Ward 7, you could possibly make the argument that it's a bedroom community of sorts. So it's difficult to engage people that haven't chosen to be engaged.
Yeah.
How about priorities for the city as a whole?
For the city, I would love to see like more in terms of affordable living. And I say affordable living because housing is just a piece of it. I think wage increase, if it was possible to push for the city to have an increase of the minimum wage, then I would be an advocate of that. Also being mindful of the local business owners, and trying to really strategically look at how can we make Salem more affordable for everybody in the community, and not kind of pushing down any one population, but really just trying to make it affordable for everyone who lives there.
So I noticed that you went to at least, how many, we had what, one or two actual live city council meetings for a bit there.
Yeah.
I saw you at least one of them.
Yeah.
And you've attended some Zoom city council meetings.
I have.
So you've had your chance to see how the city council operates, how they do business. Do you have any thoughts on communication within the city council chambers? Do you feel that the city council of the last couple of years has communicated well, effectively, and civilly with each other? And have they also communicated that way with the mayor's office? And in the same vein, has the mayor's office communicated well and civilly with the city council? Do you see a problem there, or do you think that the city council's been operating properly?
I do see an issue. I see a division, and I think that that's definitely an issue. And it's, you know, classic of certain certain things that go on. Really, it's not good for the city. It's kind of like harboring this anger and using that anger to propel your argument. And I think that if we come together and talk and have these conversations and have disagreements and move on from that in a civil way, I think that that's best. I think there's a lot of misinformation that's being spread, and I would like to see more truth and more factual data and more proof of things. But my biggest issue, or the thing that I've seen the most of, is like this division and bashing certain people, which I don't think is helpful. I don't think it's helpful at all to bash anybody. I think we're all for the same team, which is making Salem a better place to live. And we all are striving for like a quality of life that can bring us happiness, as cheesy as it sounds. And I definitely think that there are some issues with city council and kind of that split.
But also, to be fair now, do you feel that the mayor's office is doing their best to maintain those civil relations coming in? Because if you don't get both sides to work together, you're not going to get any work done at all.
I think that the mayor's office is trying. I think that, there's always room for improvements in terms of communicating with people. I think it can be hard if everybody isn't willing to see each other's sides or to come together. But if there's like a self-serving group or entity, it just perpetuates this division, and it just continues like this lack of community that we're seeing in Ward 7.
Well, most everybody, if you talk to just about everybody in Salem, one person may say that this group of city council is a self-serving.
Yeah.
Another person may say that that group of city council is a self-serving. How are you going to deal with that if you get on the council?
I think the proof is in what they're voting for. What are they proposing? What things are they putting forward? If it comes down to like the ADU situation, that can really help marginalized populations. So if you care about affordable housing and you care about equity, then that's something that you can vote for. And it might not be perfect, but it's a start, and you can improve from there. But you can't deny it and never put forth something new, a solution. We need solutions to things, and I think that often we can talk about the problems all day, and we can just sit in that, or we can talk about the problems, acknowledge them, and then bring solutions to the table.
Very important to bring solutions to the table.
Definitely.
So we talked about your priorities for the ward. We talked about traffic, and we talked, of course, about development. So you're a resident at Rainbow Terrace, which is like Lee Fort Terrace and like Pioneer Terrace is one of the original Salem Housing Authority projects. Been there a long time. My uncle lived there with his family back in the 60s.
Oh, really?
What do you see happening there 10 years from now, 20 years from now? Those buildings are old, they're beat up. What do you see happening there?
They definitely are. I can attest to that. I think we're coming up on a time where state public housing needs to kind of fade out. And I think that we need more, I think we need all types of people from all socioeconomic backgrounds living together and sharing spaces. This only works if we're all together. And I do feel that Rainbow Terrace, I mean, it obviously has its stigmas, but I don't think that it's helpful to take all people that are experiencing poverty and kind of set them off to the side. And it's really, it's an issue that I see nationally. We're hiding mental health issues. We're hiding poverty, and it doesn't exist. We're hiding racism, overt or covert racism, and we're turning, and just our perspectives are like this, and we're not seeing the whole picture. And that really it all fits together, like the community aspect and really just understanding one another, that I'm going to have my biases and somebody else will have theirs. But if we can talk to one another and be close to one another and share space, I think that is important.
And that's a strong finish. So there you go. That's it, guys. This is Bill from Salem Digest here at Salem Access Television on Derby Street with Veronica Miranda Faustino, who is running for the open seat in Ward 7.
Can I just say one more thing?
You may.
I do just want to say that I've been described as young, which I am. I'm 29. My birthday was August 25th.
Happy birthday.
Thanks. But I am experienced. I'm an EMT, and I worked at Collins Middle School, and I went to school for criminology, and I really had this want to be a police officer for a long time. And now I'll be heading to graduate school for mental health counseling and behavioral medicine. But I really just wanted to put that out there because I'm experienced and I would say knowledgeable. And I've been described as young and nice. And so I really want to make that clear that I am experienced with certain things. And sorry to ruin your strong finish there.
It's still a strong finish. It's still a strong finish. And once again, thank you. And we're going to sign off now with Veronica Miranda Faustino, Ward 7 candidate. It's an open seat. The preliminary election is the 14th of September. That's not that far down the road. And I hope that you guys are going to vote. I'll see you at the polls. This is Bill from Salem Digest and Salem Access TV. We'll see you the next time, guys.